It's summer now. I mean, it's been summer for a while, but according to anime, summer starts right now, and insert generic list of things that go on in the summer other than anime, but anime is what we're here to talk about. The summer season specifically, I wanted to take a minute to talk about the 5 shows I'm excited about the most for this upcoming season, because there are a lot of things that I am real excited for. So welcome, one and all, I'm Carole Stone, and today my top 5 most anticipated shows of summer 2019. Of course, when I say top 5 most anticipated shows, I'm leaving out the thing I'm really most excited for, and that is Legend of the Galactic Heroes Die Neue These Movie 1 Stellar War, which I probably won't get to see for another year or so until it comes out on DVD in the West. Curses. But to get my mind off that, here are some other fun shows I'm looking forward to, starting with Lord El-Melloi's Case Files. Lord El-Melloi's Case Files is an interesting show in a lot of ways. For starters, the prologue episode actually aired months ago, so we've gotten a good sense of what this show is going to be about because we've already seen an entire episode's worth of its content. We've gotten a sense of the main characters, the main cast, the main plot line, as well as the sound, the animation, and the general production values. And so far so good on all accounts. But this show is interesting and unusual in a lot of other ways as well. It's a Fate series, based off of a set of light novels of one of the many Fate series, but unlike every other Fate series that has been animated so far, this is one that does not actually involve a Holy Grail war. That means no servants, no Fate slash in the name, and yes, no saber. But as shocking as it is to have an entire Fate series without a character like this as one of the main cast, my hopes are actually really high for this being one of the best Fate series to come out so far. Not the best, of course, but close, because the best Fate series, as everyone knows, is Fate Zero, and Fate Zero is exactly what this show is springing off of. Rather than coming up with a whole new alternate world line of Fate Stay Night, as so many of them do, this follows Waver Velvet, one of the protagonists of Fate Zero, several years later during his adult life. And yeah, that's it. Waver is the only real connection to the Fate series as we know it. Well, that and, the lore, the magic systems, the clock towers, it's the same universe and same protagonist, but that's it. And I think that's going to be really fascinating because we're going to get to see this world through another lens besides that of the Fuyuki Grail. Instead, we're going to get to embark on an adventure of magic, intrigue, and mystery with one of the franchise's best characters, and honestly, I couldn't be more psyched about that. Next up, oh yeah, and I should mention it before I go any further, but this isn't a top list or anything, these aren't a countdown, this isn't in any sort of favorite order, because Lord El-Melloi's Case Files is one of the shows I'm most excited about, so it would probably be in the number 1 or 2 spot if that's what I was doing, but I'm not. So continuing on to the next show I'm excited for, Dr. Stone. Dr. Stone is a show I don't know that much about, but I'm fairly excited for it for one particular reason. Now, the premise of the anime itself is that the world has been turned to stone, everyone and everything, for some unknown reason. Many years later, the stone cracks, releasing 2 high school students whose job it is to rebuild society, only they disagree on how that society should be rebuilt. Now, while that premise sounds like it could potentially be quite interesting, it isn't actually the reason why I'm interested in the show. Rather, that's the context in which I first heard of the show. I originally heard of it in the context of 2 manga series that were at the top of Shonen Jump's lists that were rather different from normal shonen fare. One, of course, was Dr. Stone, and the other was this winter's The Promised Neverland. Now, while I'm not expecting this to be something like The Promised Neverland, since it seems to be a very different sort of series, the fact that it is held up there in the same way gives me hope for it. Here's the thing. I'm getting pretty damn sick of shonen formula and the shonen norms. Really, the only shonen series I've gotten quite into for the last several years was My Hero Academia. But before I started getting tired of the cliches and the tropes, I really was into a lot of shonen series, and so I'd love it if there could be a show out there that brought back my joy in shonen anime, and I'm hoping that this one will be it. Next one. Now, while Lord El-Melloi's Case Files and Dr. Stone were going to be on any list of this sort coming out right now, the inclusion of the next show I'm going to talk about is not a given. That's right, I'm talking about Given. Given isn't typically the sort of show I'd be watching, since I tend to avoid any series tagged with the twin tags of romance and slice of life like the proverbial plague, because that's just not my genre at all. But with the airing of last year's Bloom Into You and this year's Carole&Tuesday, I've started to find that there is a certain category of slice of life, the more unusual ones with little bits of a twist, that do actually appeal to me after all, since they have an incredible ability to develop character and interesting, non-conventional relationships. And I'm hoping that my enjoyment of the musical themes in Carole&Tuesday will carry over at least somewhat into Given, but that's not the only reason I'm interested in it. Hell, I probably wouldn't have given it a second glance even for that if it weren't for another thing. And that is that, if you haven't noticed from the number of videos I made on it when it came out, I fell in head over heels into the Banana Fish fandom, which in turn has led me to the depths of Banana Fish Twitter hell. And Banana Fish Twitter hell is very, very excited about Given. And so far, every other show that the rest of the Banana Fish fandom has gotten very excited about, those being Promised Neverland, Bungo Stray Dogs Season 3, So Sasami, and Carole&Tuesday, have been quality series, so just that recommendation is enough for me to be pretty damn interested in Given. Plus, honestly, the world could always use more depictions of healthy queer romance, I am just saying. And speaking of Banana Fish, that's also the reason why number 4 is on the list as well. And that is To the Abandoned Sacred Beasts, or some Japanese title which I really can't pronounce. Sacred Beasts is a dark fantasy anime by Studio Mappa, the same one that brought us Banana Fish, as well as a bunch of other really strong shows. Overall, Mappa has become one of the most reliable studios recently, hitting it out of the park season after season with great shows, from Dotoro to Zombieland Saga. Their last attempt at a fantasy series similar to this one was Altair: Record of Battle, and while that show did have some narrative problems, it was overall quite enjoyable. So I'm hoping this will be at least as good as that, if not some better. And I just love dark fantasy, so this combination of a studio I trust and a genre I love makes me quite hopeful. The series itself is about a continent coming out of a war. During this war, one of the sides used dark magic to create superpowered soldiers. And in the wake of this war, and in the beginning of peacetime, these superpowered soldiers now have to figure out how to cope with this peace and their new powers, as well as hunting each other down, apparently, from the looks of it. Honestly, that premise sounds an awful lot like the premise of last season's Fairy Gone, but hey, I never got around to finishing that one anyway, so I'll give this one a shot and see how it goes. And now, my final series on the list, and the one I am most excited for, and that is Vinland Saga. My favorite anime of all time is The Heroic Legend of Arslan, a medieval fantasy military story based loosely off a real-world legend. My favorite manga of all time is Kingdom, a feudal fantasy military story based loosely on real-world history. So it should come as no surprise to you that when I heard about an anime animated by studio with the same studio that brought us the gorgeous animation of Kabanari, Attack on Titan, and Seraph of the End, about, wait for it, a historical fantasy military story based loosely on myth and history? Yeah, I was very sold. If this show is what I think it is, and anywhere near as good as it's been hyped up to be, this is going to be one of my new favorite anime, and my only hope is that it doesn't disappoint me. I know the first episodes for a couple of these shows, including Vinland Saga, are out already at the time of this video's release, but I decided that I wanted to go ahead and make a video jotting down my thoughts now before I went off and watched the first episodes. So I'll probably have some videos up about those first episodes in the upcoming days, but in the meantime, I hope you enjoyed this. I'm probably not going to make a habit of doing this sort of thing every season, but there were just so many shows I was really excited about, so I wanted to talk about it. This is Coriander Stone, and I thank you for watching El-Melloi.